Praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Shemi Harushai, Bashir Kapadash. Double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Another week in, week out doing the work. And today we're going to start talking about this whole thing with the Jeffrey Epstein, all these niggas being exposed for the wickedness that they're doing. And how there was a point in time where people thought that we were crazy for saying these things. But now, we're not the crazy ones. And that point is going to happen more and more as these prophecies start to happen, as people are going to realize, damn, these people were actually speaking the truth. It wasn't just a conspiracy theories. It wasn't just, cap, make-believe. It was actually the truth. And the truth is in the scriptures. Right? How do we know that these Edomites were doing all that wickedness? Because the scriptures talk about how they are the wicked. So it always goes back to the Bible. The Bible is, the original source. But let's first go into Ezekiel 33, in the last couple of verses. Going into how, hey, the prophets are going to be out here preaching this word, but, people are going to take it for granted until it's too late. Find it?
Yeah, Ezekiel 33 and 30.
Yeah.
Ezekiel 33 and 30. Also, thou son of man, the children of thy people still are talking against thee by the walls and in the doors of the houses, and speak one to another, every one to you his brother, saying, Come, I pray you, and hear what is the word that cometh forth from the Lord.
Right, because that's something that people don't realize, is that this word is coming from the Lord. Okay, the scriptures talk about how the Lord at sundry times spoke through his servants, the prophets. Right, so we are the Lord's, mouthpiece. He's not going to just come down and, appear himself before everybody. No, this is the way, it's happening. That's why, when they're asking Yahushua for a sign, they said that there shall no sign be given to this generation but the sign of the prophet Jonas, right, going into the men teaching. So, keep going.
And they come unto thee as the people cometh, and they sit before thee as my people, and they hear thy words, but they will not do them. For their mouth they shew much love, but their heart goeth after their covetousness.
Right, so people just talk. Right, it sounds good. Yeah, we the Israelites. Yeah, we kings. As what Kanye say, we kings and shit. They like that, but as soon as it comes to actually changing, they don't want to listen to it at all after that point. It's that shows you that our people really are in the spirit of the woman, because that's the mentality of the woman, is to not take accountability. And it's really a generational curse. Goes back to the curses, because you had talked about how the man, his eye was going to be evil toward his brother, and the woman, her eye was going to be evil toward her man and her children. So it's that cycle of the man leaves, single mama raises an emotional Jake does the same thing. And that's why you see so many crash outs, is because the curses, which let me insert the other scripture. Menstruous. Second, read that right there. Second Ezra 5 and 8.
Second Ezra 5 and 8. There shall be confusion also in many places, and the fire shall be oft to set out again, and the wild beasts shall change their places, and menstruous women shall bring forth monsters.
And that's what we're saying, is that these women are bringing out, as they say, straight gremlins. Niggas in the hood not caring about nothing, just up in that shit. But get back on that point, Ezekiel 33. Ezekiel 33 and 31.
Ezekiel 33 and 31. Pharaoh shall see them and shall be comforted for over all his multitude.
No, 33 and 31.
Ezekiel 33 and 31. And they come unto thee as the people cometh, and they sit before thee as my people, and they hear thy words, but they will not do them. For with their mouth they shew much love, but their heart goeth after their
Covetousness.
covetousness.
Which covetousness goes into wanting something that somebody else has.
Like envy.
Yeah, envy. So like people see people with money nowadays, or the car, or the woman, and instead of, you know, this nigga getting his own woman, he's like, nah, I want your woman. And that's that covetousness. So keep going.
And lo, thou art unto them as a very lovely song of one that hath a pleasant voice, and can play well on an instrument, for they hear thy words, but they do them not. And when this cometh to pass, lo, it will come, then shall they know that a prophet hath been among them.
Right, so they hear our words, but they're not going to do them. And that's, you know, as the scriptures say, that majority of our people are not going to make it. You know, the mass majority are going to be cut off. And that's something that goes completely against that church doctrine that the Lord came to save all people and he loves everybody. You know, the scriptures don't back that up. It literally says that a part of his people were born in vain. You know, get that? Search up a grape cluster in 2nd Esdras or 1st Esdras. Yeah.
2nd Esdras 9 and 21. And I saw, and I spared it greatly, and I have kept me a grape of the cluster, and a plant of a great people.
Right, so the grape being the elect of the cluster of the Israelites. The plants of a great people, the same thing, the elect of the Israelites.
Let the multitude perish then, which was born in vain, and let my grape be kept, and my plant. For with great labor have I made it perfect.
Right, so he said, let the multitude perish then, which was born in vain. Right, so if you ain't part of the elect, you were literally born in vain. You have no purpose but to just be destroyed. Which that really puts it in perspective, you know, how the Lord is dealing right now. You know, so when it goes into that, at the end it says, for with great labor have I made it perfect, going into the elect. Because it talks about how the elect are going to be put through that furnace, you know, the furnace of affliction. You get that Ecclesiasticus 2:1 to like 6.
Ecclesiasticus 2 and 1. My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation.
Break it down.
Set thy heart aside and constantly endure, and make no haste in time of the trouble. And it's one of those things where it's an obvious thing. If you're in this world and you start to beginning to try to be a righteous person, and you're trying to get away from all these worldly things, the only thing that's gonna happen is you're gonna start to be tempted.
Yeah.
You know, the devil's gonna start attacking you more because he sees that you're trying to be on point. So that's why it says prepare yourself for temptation, because just because you're trying to be on point doesn't mean all this stuff is gonna go away. It means the opposite. Everything's gonna be amplified.
Yeah, and there's a scripture that says that he that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey. So when you depart from that lifestyle, that's when Satan tries to attack you to get you back in that lifestyle.
Pretty much become a target.
Yeah, but when you in that lifestyle, you actually end up materially better. You know, you can't say blessed, because that's not a blessing. But when you in that lifestyle, you know, you get all the material things more, because he wants to keep you in that lifestyle. You know, so that's why, you know, the scriptures talk about, hey, prepare thy soul for temptation, because hey, you're going to lose a lot of things. And Yahweh Shai talked about how you got to forsake houses, you know, family, children, wives. But those that forsake those things are ultimately going to inherit a hundredfold. You're going to get a multiplied whatever you gave up.
Set thy heart right and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble. Cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy end.
Right, so whenever we're going through those situations, hey, you're not even supposed to be in the mentality of trying to make it go faster. Which when you think about that, that's a hard mentality to really have.
That's how you said let it flow.
Yeah.
Like don't force the course.
Yeah. The course, not the course of the river. So when you in that fire, you just gotta take it. You just gotta accept that, yup, I'm in that fire and I'm just gonna, it says you're supposed to be cheerful. You're supposed to be happy you in that fire. Because I think it's Hebrews chapter 11, or search up, no, Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 6, I believe, talks about how, hey, if you're going through that fire, then that means the Lord dealing with you. But if you ain't going through that fire, then you gotta self-examine, you know.
Hebrews 12 and 6. From whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth. Is that how you say that?
Yeah, chasteneth.
Chasteneth. And scourgeth every son who he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God deledeth with you as with your sons. For what son is he whom the Father chastens not?
So, if the Lord is dealing with you, he's going to deal with you like a son. And what father doesn't discipline his son? So going into how, you know, going back to 2nd Ezra, it talked about how, you know, with great labor have I made that plan perfect. Going into the Lord trying us.
I'm going to finish that point.
Yeah.
But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all partakers, then are ye bastarded not sons.
Right, so if you're out without that chastisement, as all are, you know, all these people of the world, they're not going through the same things that the believers go through, right? Because they're in the world. But if you're without that chastisement, then you're a bastard and you're not a son. So, you know, brothers always talk about, if you're going through something, then that means the Lord dealing with you. And of course, it's the balance. You know, the Lord put you in that fire, and then he'll take you out. And you'll be chilling for a little bit. But just know that, you know, it's going to be a constant test, always. And it's always something that you least expect. Always you get hit where you least expect it. But keep reading on that.
Hebrews?
Yeah.
Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verify for a few days chasten us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness.
Right, so when you go into, you know, your carnal parents, right, they could just beat you because they wanted to, you know, because they had a bad day. But when it comes to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, and he's going to do it for a reason, you know, to make you better. So, you know, whatever you're going through, that means it's a perfect test for you. You know, it's not something just random. No, it's like perfectly handcrafted just for you to learn that lesson. So that's why, you know, the scriptures talk about how you got to go through that furnace of affliction to ultimately, you know, become purified. Because the only way to learn is to go through it, to go through it. Especially for, you know, our people, which talks about stiff-necked, hard-headed, rebellious. Right, that's that nature. But keep going on that.
Now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, after it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby.
Right, so when you're going through it, it don't feel good. You're like, damn, you know, I don't know if I can take it no more. You'll be getting weak, you know, but after it's finished, you look back, you're like, damn, you know, I'm glad I went through that. You know, I see why I had to go through that. And you get that, you learn that lesson. Because when you're in that fire, you know, imagine you literally on fire, you can't think. You know, you burn and you like just all emotional. But once you cool off, that's when you can relax, be like, you know, it makes sense now. But the mentality the scriptures tell us to have is to be in that fire and to be stone cold. To be happy you in that fire, you know, be rejoicing. You know, that's like Paul was talking about, I rejoice, you know, through the hardships I've been through. You know, and he started listing about how he was shipwrecked. You can pull that up, search shipwreck. Because Paul went through it, you know, bad. But, you know, Yahweh Shai said that, you know, we gonna drink of that same cup. he talked about, or John said that, I baptize with water, but the one that comes shall baptize, with the Spirit and fire. So going into, you're going to be tested.
Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 11 and 25. Thrice was I beaten with rods, once I was stoned, thrice I was suffered shipwreck, and night and a day I have been in deep. So it said not only once, but 3 times.
Yeah. So,
in journeying often in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils by my own countrymen, in perils by the heathen, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren, in weariness and painfulness, and watching often, in hunger and in thirst, in fasting often, and in cold and nakedness.
yep.
Besides those things that are without, that which cometh upon me daily, the care of all the churches. Who is weak, and I am not weak? Who is offended, and I not burned?
That's the point, is that he was going through it. And we going to drink of that same cup. And that's why it says, through much tribulation shall you enter into the kingdom, because it ain't going to be no cakewalk. It's going to be the most difficult thing that you ever did. Especially, what we've seen worldwide, it's the beginning of Jeremiah 30 and 6. Get that? Jacob's trouble. I'll get Daniel 12 to hit after that. Got it?
Yeah. Jeremiah 30 and 6. Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see
Right,
every
so
man?
Daniel or Jeremiah was asking, why do I see a man, like if he's having children, going into that fetal position, bent over in pain.
Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness.
Right.
Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved of it.
Right, so he was seeing what we're starting to see right now. Right, Jacob's trouble, which goes into a time, worse than anything humanity has ever seen. Worse than ancient Egypt, worse than the Black Plague, worse than all that.
Crusades.
Yeah. So, and when you hear about the Black Plague and how that killed 1/3 of Europe, the scriptures talk about how plagues are gonna come. It said that in Matthew 24, there shall be uproars of the people, famines, pestilences. So 2020 was just a little teaser. Right? Just wait till they really release, those bioengineered diseases, because it came out that they have biolabs that they can actually change a little simple disease and make it so it has all types of characteristics. That's why when it was the 2020, there was the vid, so many variants. There's like a new variant every single day, because they was ultimately messing with it. So the latest one I heard was in India.
I've seen that.
Yeah, they were talking about how it had like a high mortality rate and that there's no cure. So
I think this is like a variant of, because this was like something that, like a disease that was there before, but it's like came back again.
and they said that it came out of a bat. So
Yeah.
that same story all over again. But this is Daniel chapter 12 and verse 1. It says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. Right, so it's going to be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. So nothing ever seen before. So that, should put in perspective how bad it's going to be. And that's why when these things do happen, this word is going to be the most valuable thing in the earth, because people are going to be looking for answers. Once they realize they can't go to their 9 to 5, that all their investments went to nothing, that they don't got money, water, food, that everything they think about is just failing, that's when, they're going to be looking for the Lord. But for a majority of people, it's going to be too late, because they're taking them for granted right now. Which, go into Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 10, I believe. It talks about the day of the Lord is near.
1 and 10.
It's around there, yeah.
Zephaniah 1 and 14. The great day of the Lord is near, it is near, and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord, the mighty man shall cry there bitterly.
Right, so the mighty man, okay, the mighty man of today's society is going to be crying bitterly. Now, I always think about, these influencers, Andrew Tate, David Goggins, all these people, they're going to be crying bitterly, stomach hurting. That shows you how bad it's going to be. Because if you don't got the Lord, everything you do is going to fail. And he's going to make it so it fails. That's the crazy part. It's not because you might be, it's not because you're a dumb person. It's because, he's going to make it so you fail. No matter what you do, if you don't got that faith. So keep going.
That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet and the alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. And I will bring distress upon men, that they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as dung.
Right, so he's going to bring distress upon men, that they shall walk like blind men. So he's going to make people, like I said, be walking blind. And the thing is that you don't even know it. You think you're doing everything correct, but you're really walking blind. So that's why at the end of the day, it says that King Solomon, he examined everything. He went to examine folly, wickedness. He did it all to see, what was the conclusion of everything. And he said the conclusion of the whole matter is to fear the Most High and to keep his commandments, because he's the one in control. And that's what, this world has forgotten, is people think that, we have free will, I'm in control, and that develops pride. It talks about that in 2nd Ezra, that because of their pride, the city shall be troubled. So, the Most High is in control, and he's got you people believing that you're in control.
When it says a day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers, he's talking about here, right?
Yeah, it's talking about here, because this would be your so-called protected kingdom. It says that in I'll get it, Isaiah 47. Right, in Isaiah 47 and I'll start at verse 7. It says, "And thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it." Right, going into Babylon the great whore, talking about in Revelation, going into America. Right, so they have that mentality. This place has that mentality of, it's going to stand forever. I'm a lady, I shall be a lady forever, that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. Right, so that's the people nowadays, stuck in that pleasure, doing whatever they want to do. And that mentality of, this place is never going to fall. So it says, but these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in a day, the loss of children and widowhood, they shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. right? So this place is going to fall. And it's going to fall for all the wickedness that this place does. And as it says, for the multitude of thy sorceries and thine enchantments. You know, the high level witchcraft that they're doing at the top, which is being exposed today. So that's why, you know, it even ties to, I think it's 2 Thessalonians 2. You can go there. It talks about how the son of perdition was going to be exposed. Yeah, verse 4, sorry, verse 4. Let me see. Verse 3.
2 Thessalonians 2, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
Right, so the falling away, going into the Israelites falling away, being scattered, and that man of sin being revealed, going into these Edomites, which that's happening right now. You know, their true nature is being exposed, you know, at a high level, where the average, you know, American knows that, yo, they doing all that shit for real. So,
How you were saying earlier, like all that shit that was a conspiracy theory before, like, it's come to light.
And the thing is, as time goes by, it's only going to get more and more exposed, to the point where people realize that, hey, you know, this place is the problem. So keep going.
Who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things.
Right, so it says that this man of sin exalts himself as the Most High, believes he's the Most High, you know, and has that God complex. Which when you go into Isaiah 14, you know, that's ultimately, Isaiah 14 talks about how Yahweh will rescue his people from Babylon. That's the title. So talking about this place, and when you jump down to verse 13, it says, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation and the sides of the north, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, I will be like the Most High. Right, so this is all talking about the same thing, right? These Edomites being exposed here in America. But what's happening, what's coming is, verse 15, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit, right? So they're going to be brought down from this current power position. And what we're seeing is really a transition of a kingdom. Or we're seeing, as it says in 2nd Ezra 6 and 9, how Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that follow it. And we're seeing the fall of this kingdom live. And this is something that, you know, hey, nobody has ever seen before. You know, we're literally living, as it says in I believe it's Romans, that many men have desired to hear and to see the things which you see, you know, but have not seen them. You know, all the ancient prophets desire to see, hey, this place, Babylon. They all spoke about it. Isaiah, I just read, spoke about it. Jeremiah spoke about it. Ezekiel spoke about it. All these prophets knew about the last city, but, you know, they ultimately perished. But, you know, here it is, we're seeing it. We're seeing these prophecies literally jump out the page. And as it says in Habakkuk, at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. So, you know, we be getting caught up sometimes in that mentality of things are taking forever, you know, things slow down, but eventually it's all gonna happen. So, keep going on that point.
And now know ye that and now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work, only he who not letteth will let, until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed from the Lord, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy the brightness of his coming.
Right, so let's go into how these people, they are the wicked. And when Yahweh Shai comes back, and he's coming back to judge, you know, these wicked. Now, back in Isaiah 14 and verse 4, it says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. Right? So it's showing you the same thing, that this kingdom, those that rule this kingdom, are the wicked. And I think it talks about it in Isaiah. Go to Isaiah chapter, I believe it's 60. It talks about who is this that cometh from Edom.
Laws 63.
Yeah, start there.
Who, Isaiah 63:1. Who is this that cometh from Edom with thy garments from Bozrah? This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength, that I speak in righteousness, mighty to save.
Right, so this is a prophecy of the Messiah, his second return. And he says that he's coming back to a world ruled by Esau, Edom. So that links hand in hand with 2 Thessalonians and the Lord, destroying with the brightness of his coming the wicked.
Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel and thy garments, like him that treadeth in the wine fat? I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I would treat them in mine anger, and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garment, and I will stain all my raiment. For the day of vengeance is mine, and is in mine heart, and the year of my redeemed is come.
Right, so that's talking about him judging these Edomites. And, it's going to happen. But before that happens, we need to see this place, it get even more wicked. It's going to get to a point where, that's when the Most High Yahweh is going to send Yahushai. So, not even Yahushai knows when he's going to come back, but he's just waiting on that right hand, ready to go. As he said, the year of my redeemed is come. He that is mighty to save. And there's only one person that fits that description. So, and that's why, get a Revelation 13 and 10. It talks about how, that's what we're going to be waiting for. We're going to be waiting for that justice.
Revelation 13 and 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword shall be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
Right, so the saints going into the Israelites, those that believe, that's what we're supposed to be patiently waiting for, is for the Lord, to bring that judgment. Which, like I always say, these people of the world are going to be surprised when Yahushua comes back. Because first they're expecting a white, blue, blue eyes, blonde hair guy. But when they see how he really looks, and when they see what he's doing, that's where, it's going to be a rude awakening. Which I feel like that's going to be one of the hard pills to swallow, is when these so-called Christians, these Catholics, realize that Jesus ain't answering those prayers. When they catch in hell, they got no food and it just gets worse. That's when they're going to throw in the towel, because they don't got the spirit of Yahushua. Right, go to Revelation 20. Right, they don't got the spirit of Yahushua, which is prophecy. Right, the only way we're going to be stable in these times to come is if you understand prophecy. You understand that this is written. Without that, you're out here lost. You can know you can know all these scriptures. The Lord is my shepherd, I should never want. But if you don't understand the prophecies, you're going to be lost. You're not going to know what to do. Revelation 20 and or search up testimony and it'll pop up.
And 10.
Yeah.
Revelations 19 and 10. And I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, See thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahushai. Worship God, for the testimony of Yahushai is the spirit of prophecy.
Right, so if you in that right spirit, that's what you should be focused on. You should be focused on learning the prophecies. Right, which I believe it says that. Let me search it up. It talks about how a wise man will be conversant in dark sayings. Um, Maybe I won't be able to find this one. Let me see. Oh, there you go. Start at verse 1, 2, 3.
Ecclesiasticus 39:1. But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient, and occupied in prophecies.
Right? So, if you're in that right mindset, you should be occupied in the prophecies. You should be learning about what's written to come. You know, where is it written? Because when this goes down, that's what's going to keep you stable. It says, wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and the fear of the Lord is his treasure. So that wisdom, the understanding of the prophecies is what is going to keep you stable. And that the fear, right? Fearing the Most High, that's his treasure, because that's the only thing that's going to make you get right, is if you fear the consequences, right? If you know that, you always hear the example of touching the stove, the kid touching the hot stove. He doesn't touch the hot stove because he fears that pain. So we know that there's a judgment for adultery, there's a judgment for being wicked, so we don't do those things.
It's like a more severe thing if you think about it. It's like in the Middle East with thieves. You know, if you a thief out there and they catch you, like, they gonna blow your hand off, and if you only gonna have one hand left, you ain't gonna do that shit again.
Yeah, and that's why when you look at the judgment of the laws, a lot of the times they're very harsh, because it's supposed to deter you from doing it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a law how if a woman were to get in between two men fighting, they would cut off her hand, because that's none of her business. You know, and when you follow the scriptures, it says everything in the proper order. You know, the judgment of adultery, that both would be put to death. So people would be like, you know what? Hey, let me not do that. You know, there's a scripture, a psalm or a proverb talks about how, you know, the adulterous woman, that the man that goes after her, you know, is really a walking into the gates of hell. You know, you dig yourself your own grave if you commit adultery. Because maybe you won't get, you know, sometimes the Most High has it where, they be getting murked on the spot. You know, here it is, this dude's committing adultery, and the boyfriend come back and just blow both of them. Yeah. But that's, you know, that's a proper judgment.
That's funny that, because I remember a while back ago, I watched a movie on Netflix called Adulterers, and pretty much they were just on the act, and the man come in, and he just popped both of them right there. He killed both of them.
Which I remember now, there's a story that the apostles gave about how there's this one dude who would just go from camp to camp to camp to camp, you know, just committing adultery. And, you know, he thought he got away with it until the Most High had it where I think he fell off a bridge or something like that. And he was paralyzed from the waist down. So that's like, the Most High really hit that judgment like, hey, since you know, wanted to be like that, and now he completely took off your legs.
Yeah, that's the worst part, because he didn't off homeboy. He kept him alive, but without like certain functions now.
Which that's what it says, that the wicked are reserved for the day of judgment. Right here it is, the Lord has some people doing that wickedness, but he's really going to judge them, you know, in these times to come. Because it's an easy thing to just get off. You know, you're in the spirit world instantly. But if you get tortured, if you lose your limbs, you imagine being in Jacob's trouble and you're blind. You know, it says that it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living power, because, you know, he ultimately knows your greatest fears. But keep reading that.
He will keep the sayings of the real men, and where subtle parables are, he will be there also. He will seek out the secrets of grave sentences, and be conversant in darkened parables.
Right, so he will seek out, those dark parables going into understanding those prophecies. Because it's not an easy thing to understand the prophecies. Right? And it's not meant for everyone. That's why when the disciples asked Yahushua, why do you speak in parables? He said, because this is not given unto them to know the mysteries of the kingdom. Some people aren't meant to get it. So even if you understand, if you believe something, that means that, hey, the Lord has had major mercy on you. And it has nothing to do with what you did. It's just because he wanted you to believe, his mercy. If you go to Romans 11, it talks about how, Jacob and Esau, and that before any of them even did anything, he had already chosen that one was going to be the wicked and the other one was going to be the righteous. I believe it's Romans 11.
You want to look it up?
Go to Romans 11. It's Romans 9, actually. That's what it is. Yeah, Romans 9 and verse 6.
Romans 9 and 6. Not as though the word of God had taken none effect, for they are not all Israel which are of Israel.
Right, so just because you're an Israelite doesn't mean that you're the elect of the nation of Israel. Like going back to the plant of the great people, the grape of the cluster, the Lord's only coming for the elect. So, keep going.
Neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called.
Right, so just because you come out of Abraham doesn't mean that you're part of the chosen. Because it's the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Right, so Ishmael isn't part of that promise. It's only for the Israelites. Esau isn't part of that promise. It was given to his brother. Keep going.
That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. For this is the word of promise, at this time will I come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by our old father Isaac. For the children being not yet born, neither have done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to the election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. It is said unto her, the elder shall serve the younger, and it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated.
Right, so the children being not yet born yet, neither having done any good or evil, right, the Most High had already chosen that Esau was gonna be the wicked, and Jacob was who he was gonna love. So showing you that it's not about what you do, it's about, predestination. So if just us being out here, if you understand the scriptures, you believe, that means that the Lord has had major mercy on you because you believe. And, just knowing that means that you should be going as hard as you can to hold on to that crown. Because if you're not on fire, that's essentially saying that you're not grateful for what you've been given. Because it says that faith is a gift. So the same way he gave it to you, he could take it back. And that's a real scary position to be in. Right? One of the worst positions to be in is knowing the truth and completely forgetting it and completely just going back into the world. Because now you're a bigger demon than when you first started. It would have been better if you would have known nothing at all. Which I believe, let me search the scripture. Better. Right, 2 Peter, read from 20 to 22.
2 Peter's 2 and 20. For it is after they have escaped the pollution of the world through the knowledge of the Lord and Savior, Yahushua HaMashiach, they are again entangled therein and overcome. The latter end is worse. with them than the beginning.
Right? So after you escape the pollutions of the world through the word, right? Because that's the only way you really escape that worldly lifestyle is through the word. You know, we didn't just do this shit out of nowhere with our own wills. No, you heard the word, and that Holy Spirit comes into you. You know, the Lord sups with you, and that makes you that exercises those spirits off of you. But read that again.
For it is after they have escaped the pollution of the world, the knowledge of the Lord, the Savior Yahushua HaMashiach, they again entangled therein and overcome. The latter end is worse with them than the beginning.
Right, so you're gonna be worse than the beginning from where you started from. Keep going.
For it had been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than, and after they have known it, to turn from the holy commandment delivered unto them. But it has happened unto them according to the true proverb: the dog is turned to his own vomit again, and the sow that has washed to her wallowing in the mire.
Right, so as the scripture says, you went back to your own vomit. So it would have been better if you didn't know at all. Because as it says, the servant who knew his Lord's will and did not according to it shall be beaten with many stripes. But the servant who didn't know his Lord's will and didn't do it shall be beaten with less stripes. Because to whom much is given, much is required. Which, you know, as time goes on, you know, the Lord puts you in situations, you realize that, as it says, we've been given a heavy portion. Just believing and understanding, hey, that's a heavy portion.
It's what Uncle Ben says, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's true.
So you gotta be on fire, because, hey, the Lord have mercy on you. You could be another nigga in the world, gang banging, smoking weed, you know, being intoxicated every single day, drunk off the Americanism, just in the world lost, man, not knowing nothing. But the Lord, took you out of that. That's a heavy, heavy, heavy mercy. So go back to Romans 9, verse 13.
Romans 9 and 13. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with God? God forbid. For he saith to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of that God showeth mercy.
Right, so is the Most High unrighteous because he said that he hates Esau? It says no, because he's going to do what he wants to do. And that's something that a lot of people don't like to hear. They get emotional.
They can't wrap their heads around it.
Yeah. You know, you always hear about, you know, when we bring out how the Edomites are going to be exterminated. But why would God do that? Well, because he wants to, you know.
And then they're like, but I thought God was all loving.
Yeah.
He's not. That ain't my God.
Yeah, I remember somebody literally telling me that. Hey, that's not the God I believe in. That's not the God I know. Well, yeah, because the God you know is a false God.
Jesus loves everybody.
Yeah. You know, the first thing the scriptures say is, what is it, Amos 3? Go to Amos 3 and 1.
Amos 3 and 1. Hear this word that the Lord hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities.
Right, so he said that you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for your iniquities. Right, so he's not dealing with everybody. Okay? He's only dealing with his people. And that's why Yahushua came to do the same thing. He said, I came to do the will of my Father. You know, he came for his people, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You know, and that's very clear. You know, here it is, you got 20 scriptures that's talking about how he came for his people. And these so-called Christians will twist 2 scriptures to try to make it seem that he came for everybody. You know, which ultimately they're interpreted wrong. So they're really trying to force that narrative of he loves everybody, do whatever you want to do, we're not under the law anymore. You know, which goes against all his teachings. Because it says in Matthew 5 that, you know, whosoever teacheth to break the commandments shall be called least in the kingdom. And whosoever teacheth to keep the commandments shall be called greatest in the kingdom. You know, so if he came and he was perfect and he said, be like me, and we're supposed to be, as they say, Christ-like. You know, we're supposed to be striving to be like him, which goes, hey, keep the commandments. It literally says, if you love me, keep my commandments. You know, that is what love means. You know, not this emotion of lovey-dovey and romanticism. You know, all that goes back to, you know, something else. You know, the true love is to keep the commandments. Because if you love your brother, you ain't gonna commit adultery with his wife. You ain't gonna lie to him. You ain't gonna steal to him. You know, you ain't gonna steal from him. You know, it always goes back to the commandments. But go back to Romans 9, verse 16.
Romans 9 and 16. So then it is not of him that willeth, nor him that runneth, but of God that showeth mercy. For the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for the same purpose have I raised thee, and in my shew my power in thee, and the name might be declared throughout all of the earth.
Right, so the only reason Pharaoh was raised up is so the Most High can show his power and to establish his name. Which that's the same thing that's happening now. The Lord has raised up the wicked. He's raised up all this wickedness just so he could slam dunk them and show everybody that he is. It's the same thing over again. And that's why I get Jeremiah 16 and 14.
Jeremiah 16 and 14. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, there shall no more be said, the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but the Lord that liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he had driven them, and will bring them again unto their land that I have unto their fathers.
Right, so they're no longer going to call the Lord, you know, by what he did in ancient Egypt. That's not what he's going to be mainly known for anymore. He's going to be mainly known for saving the children of Israel from the land of the north, talking about here in North America, and from all the places where we've been scattered. And that goes into establishing his name again, establishing that power. So, you know, everything we're seeing is already planned out. You know, we're just all playing out our part in this movie. And you just got to hope and pray that, hey, you're on his good side. Because the things that are written for the wicked, you know, is straight judgments. Keep reading on that.
Behold, I will send for many fishers, saith the Lord, and they shall fish them. And after I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks.
Right, which right now we're in that point where he sent out those fishers, right, going into us.
Fishers of men.
Yeah, as Yahushua told Peter, you know, I'll make you fishers of men. So right now, you know, the prophets are out there fishing up the elect. And it's happening by the way of the internet, which is so spiritual. It's called the internet because we're casting out that net, you know.
Internet.
Yeah, casting out that net. It's spiritual, it's called that. So, as it says, he'll send out many fishers and they shall fish them. And after he shall send out many hunters and they shall hunt them from the holes of the rocks. Because eventually those fishers will become hunters. And that's going into that spiritual power. You know, once we, you know, many brothers believe before, you know, we receive those bodies that the Lord is going to give us spiritual power on this side. You know, while everything is collapsing. But we know for sure that after Yahushua comes back, we're going to have those immortal bodies. And, you know, it's talked about in Isaiah 24, I think, that, hey, we're going to pull out these elites from those bunkers. You know, we're literally going to hunt these elites.
It's funny because how it says, out of the
holes of the rocks?
Every hill, out of the holes of the rocks.
Yeah.
That's exactly where they will be going to hide and shit.
Yeah, get that in Revelation 6. talks about they're gonna go hide.
Revelation 6 and 14. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it was rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their place. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every freeman, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. And said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of the wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand?
Right, so those thermonuclear missiles are gonna hit, heaven being departed as a scroll, going into the nuclear mushroom cloud, and then they're gonna go and run and hide to those bunkers.
It says, and they said unto the mountain and the rocks, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. Because they're going to be spooked. And at the end, they know damn well that those bunkers, they're not going to protect them for shit. It's just a matter of time of when their judgment comes.
And I'm pretty sure if you have a bunker in America, like, it doesn't make a difference. Like, you just build yourself a microwave.
Yeah,
Like,
essentially.
I remember looking into that, how you gotta, like, you can't go deep enough if a nuclear missile hits, like, direct.
That shit like tinfoil, you in there cooking up.
That's why, you know, you had what's that billionaire of Facebook?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, he was building a giant bunker in Hawaii. You know, they build these bunkers in these islands because that's gonna be pretty much like the gray zone. You know, as soon as those bunkers hits, you know that those missiles are gonna be flying also the other way. Which America has a treaty that if there were to be a nuclear war, America would send nukes to every single country, every single major potential threat, so that they would make sure that they're the last one standing when everything clears out. So it's like, you know, if it gets to that, we gonna bomb everybody. So that's why it's gonna be a worldwide event. You know, it's not just gonna be here in America that shit gets hard. It's gonna be worldwide, and it's just gonna be going down. And that's why, you know, go to Zephaniah 1 and 18, the last verse.
Zephaniah?
Yeah, 1 and 18. That's why the only answer is a spiritual answer. You know, nothing carnally is gonna be able to save you from what's coming.
Zephaniah 1 and 18. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath, but the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land.
Right, so your silver, your gold, your money, that shit's not gonna save you from the day of the Lord, from the judgment.
And it's like, it counts for everything like materialistic, because people will be talking about stock up on your guns now, stock up on your food, stock up on this. But you can stock up on everything for months, but at the end of the day, none of that shit's gonna save you, because all that stuff, it pertains to this world.
Yeah. And in that same chapter, we read about how he was gonna have men walking blind. So here it is, you think you know where you're going, but you're really blind. You know, you walking into death. Showing you it's all just control. You know, and the only thing the Lord requires out of us is to have faith and to not doubt. Because it says in go to 2 Ezra 16 verse 70.
1670?
Yeah.
2 Ezra 16 and 70. For there shall be in every city and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord.
Right, going into you Israelites. Because even though majority of our people are wicked, our people are the only ones that really fear the Lord.
Most of them do believe in God. It's just a misconstrued doctrine.
Keep going.
They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Then shall they be known who are my chosen. They shall be tried as the golden fire.
Right, so, hey, those ICE agents. Those ICE agents will eventually turn to martial law, agents.
We're gonna have the UN troops moving. That's what they.
Yeah.
That's why they got all that stuff set up for the peace officers.
So when that happens, hey, majority of those people, once they got those guns and they realize that they're the ones with the power, they're gonna take things into their own hands and do whatever they want to do, right? If they want your daughter, they want your wife, what are you gonna do when they got that gun pointed to your head? Well, you're gonna fight against them. You shoot at them and then they send the whole squadron.
Yeah.
So, hey, the Lord's gonna have it where we're gonna be pinched, from all four corners. We're gonna be surrounded, and He's always gonna pull us out in a spiritual manner. Which that's how you really get tested, is when that faith is necessary. Because if you could always just figure things out yourself, then what's the point of faith? That you figuring it out yourself? Faith is when you like, damn, I don't know how to get out of this, but I know the Lord got me. That belief in what you can't see. That's why it says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So, keep going.
For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as the gold in the fire.
Right, so we gonna know who really believe in that day, who really are the chosen. Because there's not gonna be no faking it in that day, right? It's either you believe or not. Because, hey, especially when they bring out that chip, that's gonna be the real separator of the elect and the wicked. Because you can't fake it in that day when they say that you can't buy or sell without the chip. It's okay. Let's see if you believe now. Let's see if you're gonna be out of the system on pure faith. And you go see how a lot of these niggas in IUIC, a lot of Sakari, or that broke up, the ISUPK.
Sakari broke up?
Yeah. ISUPK, all that. You're gonna see a lot of those people, they take the chip. Because they're just in it, like if it's another trend. Here it is, yeah, look at my garment, out here marching and shit. And a lot of, especially IUIC, those people in that group, they do everything that Nathaniel says, Bishop Nathaniel says, right? If he says that the name is, Jesus, they say, oh, the name is Jesus. If he says that the mark of the beast is sleeping with white women, they'll believe it's sleeping with white women.
That's crazy.
Whereas there's a group that actually believe that.
Ain't that dumb?
No, it's not them. It's another group, but it just shows you that, as the apostle says, the people in that congregation are zombies. They just do whatever the leader says. And, that's not the spirit the true believers are going to be in, right? We're supposed to be as the church of Berea, which Paul spoke about. The church of Berea, right? They're the most diligent church. How they would search out day and night and make sure that everything Paul said was on point. They would fact check it. So we're supposed to be the same way, right? You hear a brother say something, and you fact check it, you search it up, or you make sure that it's true. Because, it says you gotta be fully persuaded in your own mind. You gotta know that, this the truth, and I know it. And that doesn't come by just, hearing. It comes from you taking your time and studying. That's why it says, study to show thyself approved, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed. So you're supposed to know these scriptures like the back of your hand. If somebody comes and asks you, hey, what does this mean? Why do you believe? What do you believe in? You should be able to point, I believe because of this and this and that. It's supposed to be something logical when it comes to scriptures, not just, because I said so. So, keep going.
Hear, O ye, my beloved, saith the Lord. Behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same. Be ye not afraid, neither doubt, for God is your guide. And the guide of them who keep my commandments and my precepts, saith the Lord God. Let not your sins weigh you down, and let not your iniquities lift up themselves.
Right, so don't doubt, don't fear, because the Most High is our guide, and He's going to be the one that delivers us from those days.
It says, I am the guide of those who keep my commandments and precepts.
Yeah. So, keeping the commandments, which we'll end it with this. Go to Revelation, I think it's 18 and 12. Make sure. No. Revelation. Let me see. (14 and 12).
Revelation 14 and 12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of the God and the faith of Yahushua.
Right, so that's all it goes back to is the saints, those that are gonna make it, are the ones that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Yahushua. That's the recipe to be on point.
How it says, how it emphasizes on both commandments and faith.
Yeah, because faith without works is dead. You know, you can't just say I believe, and be just a wicked nigga. You know, you have to, as it says,
You gotta put some elbow grease into it. Actually, put some skin in the game and stop trying to do these worldly things.
it says you're supposed to put off the old man and become a new creature. So you can't just be the same person you was when you was in the world, which means you got to put off those worldly things. So we'll leave it there with that and give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Kakadash. Double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone, that time is truth. Shalom to you, Shalom.